It's going to be great. Let me put that giant water bottle down there. Wow, I'm Carly King. I'm your moderator today. I'm so excited to dive into this amazing world of Star Wars. It's going to be incredible. Maybe some things outside of Star Wars. So let's give a warm welcome to Marc Thompson, Timothy Zahn, and John Jackson Miller. Keep it going. Welcome. What is this? How are you guys doing today?
Great.
Awesome. Great. So, what do you have with you, Timothy? What is this?
These are the porgs that attend most of my panels. This one is a very important porg.
Yep, VIP.
This one is special. My wife bought these before the prequels, or I guess it was the second sequel came out, because they would look cute and she wasn't sure what else she might like or not like about the movies. But this one is very especially good because when you have a group, a family, and the adults want to talk about Star Wars books and the 3-year-old is bored out of his or her skull.
I love it. Uh-oh. There he is. Does he walk? Stop it.
Oh my gosh.
That
is so cute.
This is unfortunately the best thing I've ever seen in my life. If it goes missing, it was not me. It was you. Yeah, shut up. Next time. Well, you guys, I could really listen to you guys talk about Star Wars and all of this for hours because I and so many others love the lore and legends of the Star Wars galaxy, and I feel as though no one knows your characters and story more than you do. So if we could go down the line and dig into your career and explain your place in this galaxy.
The career or Star Wars career?
Both.
Okay, I started writing as a hobby in 1975. Turned off a bad TV show, and I said, I could write a better story than that. So over the next couple of weeks in my spare time, I wrote a story which was not very good, but I've discovered this is fun. So I kept at it for a couple of years. I was working on a doctorate in physics. My advisor was out of town a lot. The project kept getting stalled. It was a mathematical thing. And finally, in December of '78, sold my first story. Thought about maybe someday when I got my doctorate, I'd take a year off and write for a year and see if I could make a go of it because I was having a lot of fun with that. And then in July of '79, I sold my second story the day I found out my advisor had died overnight of a heart attack, leaving me with a project that was fundamentally flawed and was never going to work. So I worked with a new professor on a new project for the rest of the semester, discovered I couldn't do new physics, and write at the same time. I just didn't have enough mental energy to do that. So in December of '79, quit the department. In January of '80, started writing full time. So far it seems to be working. I figure so far. Well, I figure when this writing thing blows over, I can maybe get a job as John Williams' stunt double. We'll see how that works out.
I can see it. I can see it. How about you, Mark?
I'm doing great. So I went to school for acting, and sophomore year kind of fell into voice acting. I was on a show called Daria. And then, yeah. All right, babe, cool. And then, so I did a bunch of cartoon characters for many, many years. And then my agent called me at one point and said, have you ever done audiobooks? And I was like, no, not really. And I wasn't much of a reader. Sorry, guys. So I was trying to kind of talk her out of it because I'm like, and she's like, well, it was a Star Wars book. So I was like, wait, hold on. Because I was like a giant Star Wars fan. And I auditioned for that and luckily got the part, and that was almost 20 years, 2006, so it was almost 20 years later, and I'm still doing Star Wars audiobooks, so it's really cool.
Which book was it?
It was The Legacy of the Force, which was like a 9-book series, and they were looking for somebody to do those 9 stories. And I think I got the part because I could mimic some of the characters from the films, but I definitely had to learn the art of storytelling and all that. And so Kevin Thompson, who's amazing audiobook director and producer, like really kind of taught me on the go, and we've been doing stuff for almost 20 years now, so it's really cool.
Amazing. What about you, John?
Is this thing on? There we go.
think so.
There we go. Yeah, there we go. I was a Star Wars fan from age 9 when it came out. I'm from Memphis originally. I grew up about 3 blocks from Graceland. Saw the movie in the same theater that Elvis Presley would actually close at night to watch movies after midnight. It's probably one of the last things he saw.
Yeah.
But I wasn't able to get in for a long time because we didn't have multiplexes back then. But I was writing and drawing my own stories and comics. I went to journalism school. Made a side trip to get a Soviet studies degree. The only reason I have a master's degree instead of a doctorate is the Soviet Union collapsed on my dissertation, and so I went back into publishing. Edited magazines about lumber for a while. That was no fun. Then comic books, and by that point I had found my people again. I was hired to write comics for Marvel. I did Iron Man. It was actually 20 years ago this week that I was visiting Dark Horse Comics. I just happened to be there and said, "Hey, you have anything open on Star Wars at any point?" And the editor, gave me a single issue tryout, which is now just been reprinted in this big 7-pound book. Please buy them so I don't have to carry them.
Sick.
Star Wars ended up, that one issue led to me doing Knights of the Old Republic for years.
Wow.
And I did that
Yes,
entire
my
series.
favorite.
That led to the Kenobi novel. That led to the New Dawn novel, which tied into Rebels, and then various other franchises, and then finally back to Star Wars here again with The Living Force, which is the novel that just came out this April, which is the Jedi Council on spring break. So,
This is the Batman version, as you can tell.
well, that's the current book because my October while I was in journalism school, I had nothing to do the summer of 1989, so I saw Batman 12 times. Wow. And so my editor said, "Okay, we're doing the first novel in the Tim Burton universe," and we immediately thought of you because you saved your ticket stubs.
Wow.
How
As
cool.
Yoda said later that same day, once you start down the Star Wars path, forever will it dominate your destiny.
And bank account, unfortunately. So, yeah, I guess bouncing off of your novels, both of you, Mark, you voiced both of John and Tim's novels and audiobooks, and so many incredible characters that we are going to dive into shortly.
Okay.
But I find the dynamic between author and voice actor to be so interesting. So how does that dynamic compare to like a director and an actor? What's that process like between all of you?
Well, I suppose everyone's different. I generally don't reach out to Timothy or John or any of the authors that I narrate because I want to allow the director to do their job.
Sure, yeah.
And so most of the time I'm getting most of my inspiration from the text itself, and so. And I guess the different narrators have different approaches, but most of the time for me, I'm getting the book a few weeks before we have to start recording, so there's not a lot of time for me to, send out emails or calls or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, but I mean, I will say that like most of the time, there's so much information in the novel itself that I don't really feel a need to. It'd be nice to kind of collaborate, but then I might step on the director's toes and ideas that they have and stuff like that. But like so much of the information and inspiration of what character voice I should use is coming from the page and just like how they're described and how other characters describe them, and so yeah.
Right. Well, Tim and John, do you guys have any influence in like who you cast as your characters? Because you created these characters, they're so near and dear to your heart. Do you have like a specific thing you're looking for in an actor, like in their toolkit that you want to pull from?
Typically, I'm not involved in any of the voice actor stuff.
Oh,
Early
okay.
in my career, one of my editors said that they want the author out of the book cover design because authors have this thing in mind. The art director wants a cover that will sell the book or get people to pick up the book. I imagine it's similar with you, that the author may not have the knowledge in the background to understand how the voice actor is going to work. Right. The director is better at that. So I'm guessing most of the time they don't really want us involved. Now the best audio things I've had, the people that were doing this with the Icarus saga, they will send me a list of names and words and how they think it should be pronounced, and I get to say whether, yes, that's correct, or no, that should be like that.
Yeah.
So that's about the extent I've had in any kind of audiobook operation.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
It really depends on the franchise and the publisher. I've done 8 novels for Star Trek, and on those, the involvement with the producer and the director is much more open to the author. At least they come to me for more. So it'll be Robert Petkoff or January Lavoie who are doing my audiobooks. I'll provide mental casting to a degree, but also various things. We did a whole novel with Captain Rios from the Picard series, and I said in my notes, he has two moods, disinterest and disgust, and that is there in everything. And occasionally it'll be like, I hear Max von Sydow for this person or something like that or whatever. But they will go whichever direction they're going to go. You, of course, with Living Force, made some really. I would not have even known how to describe Yarael Poof's voice, and I love the decision you made. But occasionally there will be cases like when we did Count Vidian for the New Dawn book. I suggested to Kevin Thompson what the effect should be that they laid over the voice. The broken Cylon from Battlestar Galactica, the original series, is what I said, and that's what he applied. And then the first time we heard it on my stereo, you doing that voice, it scared my cat off the couch.
Oh, wow.
That's how you know he did something right. So I guess bouncing off of that, Mark, I love how each of your characters is literally so different from each other. I mean, you're voicing Gengar from Pokemon, Pokemon, that's a new thing, Pokemon, all the way to Thrawn. And so how do you get to that place where you can be so dynamic between voices and find those characters' identity?
Oh, thanks. I watch too much TV, so there's a lot of like couch potato energy in there, and so I always kind of would mimic things as a kid. And like one time, someone called on the phone asking for my mom, and I decided to pretend to be her. I was like, "Hello," and and I totally fooled them. So I was like, "Oh, that's awesome." But my idols like growing up were like, Mel Blanc and Robin Williams and Jim Carrey and so some of these guys that did just really amazing character voices. I've always been like blown away by and attracted to. So I guess I just practice, and maybe I have a bit of a parrot DNA or something. So.
Do you ever lose track of a voice and have to go back and listen to what you did?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. Like when I'm doing the books, I kind of have little voice samples on my phone of, this is what I'm thinking it should sound like. And as soon as Kevin gives me a thumbs up or thumbs down, then, the first 2 days, it's like a lot of starting and stopping, like, what was he? Okay, yeah. And then, but around day 3, I'm kind of remembering them enough where I can start to bounce back and forth more organically. But initially, it's a lot of like, what was that? So having to remember.
Wow.
Mark and I were talking yesterday about how doing the audiobooks or knowing that there's going to be an audiobook has changed the way I write. My chapters have been getting shorter and shorter and shorter because increasingly on many titles, a majority of the readers are not readers; they're
Mark's
audiobook
like, yes.
listeners, and they've got metrics on this. They are watching you or tracking. They're tracking how you're listening, so they know that people will tend to listen in 5 to 7 minute increments, about the same amount that is in between 2 commercials or whatever, and because they're commuting or something like that. And so it's not only am I not putting impossible to pronounce words in there, which is a temptation in Star Trek, I'll tell you, but also the shortness of the chapters. I also have imported from Trek into my new Star Wars novel locator captions at the opening of the chapter saying where we're at, because odds are somebody has parked this story and they're coming back to it after a few hours.
Oh, wow.
How long are your chapters now, just out of curiosity?
I've had Trek novels go down to about 1,400 words.
Okay.
Strange New Worlds, The High Country, 79 chapters, but it's an incredibly kinetic book. and it's characters all over the place. And we did 60 chapters in Living Force, and once again, we have all 12 members of the Jedi Council in this book, and they all get sequences.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and they all get sequences, and this is a very constructed book in terms of making sure everybody gets their time and everything.
Time to shine, basically.
And so, and I write limited point of view, so we're always in somebody's different voice. And yeah, I have to really try to do the air traffic control for all these characters, and I'm sure as well you've got to make sure whose voice you're in every time you start reading a chapter.
Yeah, and you did a really great job with it because each character totally felt very distinct and own unique personality, and it was super fun with some of the characters that were maybe just background characters and then Palpatine kills or whatever, it was fun to kind of get to know them on a much deeper level, so it was really cool.
I love that. How cool. I'm trying not to geek out on stage right now, even though I'm past that. I'm still doing it. So yeah, there's always a lot of talk about in the fandom about what types of Star Wars stories we need more of. We want to hear the stories that were talked around a campfire, basically. We want to hear those interesting stories and the stories about the war part of Star Wars and Inquisitors and so on, basically. So did you, John and Timothy, aim to make your novels accessible to each of those different sides of the galaxy, or was there something specific that you really wanted to hone in on in your stories?
The goal is to do a good story that people will enjoy. The plot works together. All of the plot twists you can not necessarily see coming, but once it's happened, I see how that was set up. Or, that makes sense with the character and the situation. After that, it goes through the mulcher that is my brain, and it comes out with nothing too complex on what group is this going to talk to or anything like that. This is the story I want to tell, and my brain fills in everything else. Well,
I feel like especially with Thrawn, this is like a whole new, love Thrawn. Like it's a monarchy sort of system, and being introduced to Star Wars for the first time in a way, and sort of being based on royalty and ego and an aversion to authority. And so how did the idea of Thrawn come to be before we go on? I'm aching to know.
Well, when I was first offered the Thrawn trilogy back in 89, I guess it was, my first thought was I want to do something that feels like Star Wars, but is not what George has already done. So that meant immediately no Death Star, no super weapon, no Vader type, no Emperor type.
Wow.
So, okay, who can my villain be?
Wow.
Vader controls by fear. Palpatine manipulates. It seemed to me a more dangerous villain for the good guys is someone who inspires loyalty, because they will fight for him whether he's in the room with them or not.
Oh, wow.
So backtrack from that, what kind of leader would troops be loyal to? Tactical strategic genius, so they know they're likely to win whatever battle they're put into. Does not get ego involved in battles. You see this all the time through history. I'm going to win this thing, darn it. When it's a lost cause and just wasting troops. Doesn't get that way. Okay, I'm not winning this one. I can see no past victory. Pull everybody out, pick another time and place. We'll take suggestions from subordinates. A lot of leaders, not just military but civilian, also, that's just a janitor. He can't have any good ideas. Thrawn will accept suggestions. Various things of that sort. And then since the Emperor didn't seem to have any non-humans in his upper ranks, make him a non-human, because if he gets to be one of the 12 Grand Admirals, it just underscores how special he is. But the key was they're loyal to him.
Wow, how interesting.
It's very simple when you hear it explained.
In a way. But the character's so complex, and nobody knows him more than you, because you're the creator, you're the maker. Thank the maker.
Yeah.
Truly. And so, John, going back to that question before, did you want your stories to be, I guess in a way, your stories were accessible to anybody who loves any part of Star Wars in a way. So how did you navigate?
It would be the easiest thing in the world to put the original trilogy on remix or something like that, put it on shuffle and give everybody, one random Sith Lord, one random planet-destroying whatever. The more interesting thing is to take people a place that they weren't expecting to go. Wow. The Kenobi novel, my entire idea with this is the beginning of somebody's 20-year atonement for failing the galaxy. He's never going to leave this planet again, but he doesn't know how long it's going to be. It could be 1 year, it could be 100 years, or however long Jedi lived this week. I didn't say that. But it's about a man in pain who feels he not only has he lost his entire family, but he still feels he's killed his best friend, as far as he knows. And there are no lightsaber fights. There are no space battles. It is all about him coming to terms with where he is. And I've done stories like that in other franchises. My Star Trek Discovery novel, Die Standing, is the evil version of that, where Emperor Georgiou, Michelle Yeoh's character, has lost her universe. She used to be in charge of the entire universe, and now she's got nothing. Likewise, has to decide what she's going to do with her life. And basically, all of these books are about getting the characters to understand something about themselves or about the world that they're in. The Living Force is actually all of that. Because the entire premise of the novel, I was asked to write a book about the Jedi Council 1 year before Phantom Menace, and I said, A, I'll do it, but B, absolutely, it starts with Qui-Gon Jinn walking into the Jedi Council chamber and saying, "When was the last time you people actually helped someone?" And telling them, get out of here, touch grass, as they say. Go out and see what's going on, because not only could there be, I don't know, an evil senator planning things, and you're not paying any attention at all. But what does the larger universe think about you people? You sit in this room and you debate things and you argue about things. And in the beginning, I was actually very negative to the Jedi Council. I was like, these people are ossified. They don't do anything. But as I got into the book, I realized, well, there's 12 of them. They all have different opinions. They have different thoughts.
They're flawed in their own way. And I like what you say about that, because you wrote a book that's 1 year before the Phantom Menace, and now we're diving into 100 years before the Phantom Menace, and lore's being moved around, and different pieces are being moved around. So there's been a lot of discussion about that recently. So how did you guys navigate that, and how did you approach that conversation with Lucasfilm? What are the parameters of what you're given as authors? Like, I want this character in it that's never been established before, or, one that you just created. So how is that for you guys?
For me, it's a matter of, does this character fit how I see Star Wars? Does he or she fit into the mix of adventure, sacrifice, loyalty, friendship, humor that is unique to Star Wars? Star Trek is unique to Star Trek, etc. Each universe has its own feel. So whether you're doing the established characters, it needs to feel like they're actually the ones from the movies, or Han plus 2 years, if we're writing that era, you do the interpolation type of thing. I should also mention one other thing when you talk about we're going to be adding new characters. We will occasionally be either ignoring something or maybe even bumping canon a little bit. Yeah. And something Leland Shee said years before even the Disney purchase, he said, everything in Star Wars is somebody's favorite.
Oh, wow.
And so you go approach this thing not with a machete, with a scalpel.
Oh, wow.
You want to be very careful not to cut out somebody's favorite thing for no reason. Has to be a good reason for that. And that line has always stuck with me.
Great.
Yeah, I like that, yeah.
With Living Force, we had 12 Jedi Masters who have histories, in some cases, that are some of them are established, and then some of them were pseudo-established, and some of them were retroactively unestablished.
And legends and canon.
And then
like
some
both.
of the sort of one of the issues I encountered almost immediately was one of the major sources for history about these characters, the Jedi Council, was in the Phantom Menace Encyclopedia, which had a number of elements that were more or less undone by Attack of the Clones. And so things like the homeworlds and the young lives of Depa Billaba and some of these other characters, Evan Peel, that all now didn't happen because they were brought to they were all brought in as children, and then you have people like Ki-Adi-Mundi, who in the comics has 5 wives and whatever else, and that's also all gone. But I one of the things that I've always tried to do, and you talk about the scalpel, my thing is I try to make all versions correct. Or I try to leave a door open so all the versions that exist can possibly still work in somebody's mind if I can help it. And so even though Evan Peel did not grow up for decades on this war-torn planet, he still comes from a war-torn planet, and then I established that after he was a Jedi, he went back and visited, and that did all, and basically, and he felt like he lived there for years after that. And so, yeah, we're always trying to do that kind of thing. So what we do on the print side of things is a bit of the self-repair to the universe that is not exactly easy to do, on screen.
Sure.
I think the old slogan is hammer to fit. Hammer to fit, paint to hide, something like that. Yeah,
That's great.
That's awesome. Well, I love hearing, I love that scalpel analogy, and I love discussions. Like, I love how many discussions have been brought to the surface recently with everything new coming out. It's very interesting. I love learning about more of what's happened in your guys' books and everything, so I like it.
Another phrase that I use is if you're a baker, particularly making cakes or something, you eat your mistakes. So if you discover that there's an error in something like a comic book series, which I had with Knights of the Old Republic, every time somebody would say, "Hey, that's an error," I would say, "No, that's a story I haven't told you yet."
Yeah.
And then we would fix it, and then somebody would go, "Wow, they planted that idea way back."
They knew all this time.
Well, he knew
it
was John all along.
Yeah, I meant to do that. Those are the most powerful words.
That's awesome.
There was, I remember a conversation with Corwin when the middle of the Harry Potter movies. He'd read all the books at that point, and discussing there are 2 ways of doing the sequel sort of thing. 1, you take a throwaway line and expand on it. And 2, you have it all planned out, and that throwaway line is foreshadowing. And both of those are valid, and we've used both of those in writing.
Wow.
And we look like geniuses either way, so we like it.
It's true. It's true. So, I guess diving into more of like the lore and the world behind the books, John, we chatted earlier about a certain thing. Talk to me about how you create your maps, your physical maps in your novels, because. Yeah, it's
crazy. The Living Force, I realized I was sending these people to an island planet, and I needed to know where they were. And since I needed to know where they were, I had all those notes down. And then I had just done. I've done a lot of maps. The Strange New Worlds High Country novel has 5 maps in it, more than any Star Trek novel ever. Lost Tribe, or not Lost Tribe, but Living Force has a black and white map in it. The special edition, which we've got at the booth, has a color poster map, and the whole idea is to give people a feeling of place. Where did it go? Is it? Yeah. Enjoy.
Show and tell.
Well, this is the thing. People who buy the audiobook can download the map. It is a supplemental download, and I made sure of that. And actually, it was my Trek authors on a radio show who said, "Yeah, you tell," because I was like, "No one will get the map," and they said, "Oh no, John, it's right. It's easy. You just have to tell the producers, and they can download it." But no, I feel like it makes a place more real, and it goes back to me as a kid looking at the maps in Tolkien. And that's actually another kind of a funny lead into this. The first map I did in any Star Wars book was in a book called Lost Tribe of the Sith, and again, it's about a planet, a group of Sith who are stuck on a planet. They can't go anywhere, and so I had to know where everything was. And I asked my editor, "Can I put the maps in?" And she said, "John, do you know who I am?" And I said, "You're my editor. You're Shelley Shapiro." And she said, "Well, she was the assistant for Judy Lynn and Lester Del Rey throughout the 70s, 80s, 90s. She did all the maps in their fantasy and science fiction novels, including drawing for the re-release of Lord of the Rings, some of the miscellaneous other maps that weren't in there." She says, "John, I love maps. Of course we'll include your maps." I said, "Great. Will you draw mine?" She said, "No." But again, it's something where the publishers have been very willing to do it. The novel after mine at Trek, they added maps to that, and hopefully they'll add more to the Star Wars books. We'll see. I love people like following these things around on a map.
I love it. I want to put it all on my walls and do that meme of the guy that's like pointing to everything? Yeah. I want to do that. Just invite all my friends over for dinner and then they're met with that.
A companion piece to what John's talking about is if I need a planet, Wikipedia is your friend.
Oh, yeah.
I look at the section of the galaxy I want to work with and start looking up the planet names on Wikipedia. Okay, this one, 8 pages. This one, 6 pages. This one, 10 pages. This one, mentioned in the Star Wars, in the galactic mapping. Okay, that's the one nobody has done anything with. So I can do anything I want to here without running over anybody's toes.
Wow. I love it. That's so cool. Okay, so I want to turn to the audience for some questions in a second. If you guys want to start lining up here, we only have 4 mics, so I'll probably come over and start doing that. So if you guys have questions, please start lining up here, and we'll get to you guys shortly. I have one more question for you guys, and it's a bit of a fun question. I've been asking this to everybody because it makes me chuckle. If you could get any voice actor to record the voicemail on your phone, who would it be?
Lars Mikkelsen, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
That was me too.
Or you can do Thrawn, too.
Yeah.
Whoever, Thrawn. Yeah.
Can we get a little bit of what your voicemail would be as Thrawn?
You've reached the telephone of Timothy Zahn. This is his good friend, Thrawn. Please leave a message after the cheers.
We'll get with you after the panel.
Amazing. Lovely. What about you, John?
Oh, gosh, I don't know. I'd like to hear some more of Uriel Poof if I could.
Yeah.
Oh, you've reached the phone of John Jackson Miller. Leave him a message and I might tell him about it.
Well, this was another part of research because we had to look up whether there was an official voice for any of these characters.
Right. Yeah.
And so there was only the robot chicken guy.
Robot chicken.
And when I'm listening, I'm saying you've got to be consciously avoiding that.
Oh my gosh, incredible. Well, yeah, let's get to some audience questions. So please come right up, please.
So this is a question for Mr. Zahn. So there's a lot of crazy tactical scenarios that get very complicated throughout the Thrawn novels. How do you approach making those? Do you just come up with the scenarios in their own right and pick one off the wall when you need a confrontation, or do you just see where the story goes, get to a conflict, and be like, how do I Thrawn this up? how do I make it more interesting, more complicated?
Generally, I get to the point where there's a battle. I know who's going to win at the end of it, and then I try to make both sides smart. People make mistakes, people have blind spots, but if you're a stupid commander, you generally get demoted or you get killed. So both sides need to be smart, and at that point then it's like playing chess against myself. I will make this move on this side, turn the board around. Okay, this is the logical counter move. I also can cheat in that if I see, oh, this is a really cool thing, if I set it up here, I can do that. You don't get that choice in real battles. But I can set up what's happening and then just, okay, here is what Thrawn's going to zero in on that's going to tip the balance of the battle or show him the proper approach. But it's very much thinking along it, thinking against myself and having both sides do reasonably well in the battle.
Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? Raise your hand. I can probably walk around and get to you guys. Anybody? Anybody? All right, let's do it. Parkourin. Nice. Thrawn Corin. Let's do it. All right.
Is there like a dream book that you would like to write? Like, is there any characters or just any storyline or era that you would like to write?
I had no idea, and this is not Star Wars, I had no idea this was even an option. Not writing Batman, but writing Tim Burton's Batman. Yeah. And I was like, my initial response to that was, I never even knew to ask for that, because we get asked these things all the time. What are the franchises we would want to work in? What are the parts of the timeline we'd want to work in? I've certainly been all over the timeline in Star Wars, because Old Republic, even something with Episode 8, I did the Canto Bight stuff. But yeah, I mean, you know, the best ideas and the most fun opportunities are the ones you never even thought to ask about.
Wow.
I've got probably half a dozen Star Wars ideas I would be ready to pitch if I could ever get Lucasfilm to slow down long enough to listen to them. Other franchises, I agree, I would never have thought of Tim Burton's Batman as well. I would like to, I think I could revitalize the Terminator franchise. I've got some ideas on that. In fact, I was approached by somebody who worked at Skydance, and we were going to talk about things of that sort. And then 2020 hit, and COVID, and I don't know if he even works at Skydance anymore. But
we have to make this happen. Does anyone know James Cameron? Like, please,
yes.
That would be amazing.
Well, the plan just in brief was to do an Avengers approach. We have a movie or maybe a short TV series where we wind up bringing somebody who will be useful into Team Connor, and then add somebody else, work towards the grand finale of when we're going to finally take down Skynet or whatever has come up in its place. But adding a new character each time and in incorporating them into the story and the battle against the Terminator organization. So I had a brief outline of that I sent in, and then COVID hit, everything shut down, and I never heard back from them. But
email them again.
Yes, keep hitting them up. Okay, we have time for 2 more questions. We got one over here. Excuse me.
For John Jackson Miller, what inspires your KOTOR characters?
The whole idea of Knights of the Old Republic, which again, as I said, is getting its reprints cycling now again. The whole idea was that none of these characters wanted to be together. They were thrown together by circumstances. And where did I get that from? I got that from Star Wars: A New Hope, where none of these characters wanted to be together. They were, I think, Alan Dean Foster gives Leia a line in the prologue of the novelization. They were in the wrong place at the wrong time. Naturally, they became heroes. Well, that is what's going on in the KOTOR comics all the time. And everything, there's a bit of there's a bit of a sardonic or humorous take on everything, because none of these people were intended to be heroes. We have, I think I have the record in that series for the most weird iterations of the phrase "May the Force be with you." At one point, "May the Force be with you." Yeah, I wish it would be with somebody else for a while when things go wrong, or the Force does not want me dead. The Force does not want me happy, but the Force does not want me dead. And again, all because this book is at its heart a comedy, as well as also being this big adventure and sprawling story that covers everything. So yeah, I mean, and then otherwise, I'm just riffing on old TV shows. The Knights of the Old Republic series is the TV show The Fugitive, until it stops being The Fugitive and it starts being Maverick, which happens to be another TV show by the same creator, Roy Huggins. And my Kenobi novel is the Shane movie. So it's
Lovely.
One of the comments we came up with after watching Wonka was every movie is better if it turns into a heist movie.
Lovely. All right, we have time for one more question. Anybody? Anyone have a good question? Oh, we had two. We'll take two. Might as well.
I'm sure. Did you say, Mr. Thompson, that you got in trouble once for interacting with?
Well, not so. I was doing I had met Leland Chi at a convention early on, and he was like, he gave me his business card, and he's like, if you ever need anything, just let me know. And so we were doing the novelization, I think it was of The Force Awakens, and it was before the film had come out. I was reading it 2 months ahead of time, and I really like to try to make the characters, if they've appeared in any other media, I like to try to make them sound how they've appeared before. So I kept bugging the producer, like, hey, can we get references for what some of these characters are? And it was just, we were kind of lower down in the food chain, and we couldn't get an email back. So trying to be helpful, I was like, oh, I'll just email Leland, So like, I emailed Leland. He's like, sure, no problem. But then the producer took offense to that because I was kind of going around him, and then he felt it made him look bad, and I got a little rebuked a little bit. So,
It can work the same way with the artists in the comics. You want to send everything through the editors and not actually,
Yeah.
Depends on the book, but yeah.
So if it's going to come down to who's going to be your friend, I would choose Leland pretty high.
That's
up.
true. Yeah,
Shout out to Leland.
That
We
producer's
love
not
Leland
working
Chi.
at Random House anymore. So
He's the best. He's the best. Awesome. Good question. All right, we have one more. I think it's Indiana Jones.
So this is for Mr. Zahn. And you've obviously done 6 books now under the Disney banner. Is there any whispers of getting a Hand of the Emperor book?
Ooh.
I periodically ask if I can do a Mara Jade novel, and I keep getting the answer no.
Oh.
So I don't... Wrong answer?
Keep asking.
Did they give you a reason?
No.
Okay.
So it could go from anywhere from we might have something in the works before the heat death of the universe, or we don't want to hear her name again. And I get no feedback one way or the other.
Okay.
Have you seen that clip of Seth Green and his crew at Skywalker Ranch, and George is like, don't talk about Mara Jade.
Yeah.
It's so funny. Look it up after this if you guys want to see it. But guys, thank you so much. Great audience questions, but thank you so much
Great
for,
job. Thank
for
you.
chatting.
Yeah.
Thank you guys. Yeah, if they want to come meet you, where would they meet you guys here?
I'm popping back to my table, and I think this is the last thing. I don't remember if there's another.
Cool.
Yeah. We are right across from your table. John is next to me, and he's next to me. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm probably out of here within the hour, so definitely come over and get the remaining books so I don't have to take them to Raleigh.
Please. Cut down on the luggage. Awesome. Thank you guys so much, and shout out to the boards as well. The VIP. He's so cute.
Bookmarks and some posters.
He says, we want Mara Jade. We want Mara Jade. I love it. Thank you guys. Have a good one.
They were pumping, so the ones that were real close, you were just animated.